If you love movies and movie discussions, you've come to the right place. Who am I, you ask? I am the Wiz. I'm here today with... Zero. How was your week away from me? I know it was tough.
Actually, it was kind of miserable because I'm a contractor with the game studio I'm at, so if I don't work, I don't get paid, so guess what I got to do? I got to work 4 10-hour days.
Oh, that's terrible. All right, Zero, so welcome back, and we are here to review the 1987 erotic thriller Fatal Attraction, starring Michael Douglas, Glen Close, and Anne Archer, directed by Adrian Lyne. Let's get into the plot.
We have our main character, Dan, who ends up going out to a social function for a book publisher since his law office has been handling sort of the legal matters and everything, and meets a woman named Alex at a bar, and they kind of hit it off and everything. And as the name insinuates for the title of this movie, just things get kind of spicy, and Alex and Dan have a tryst, and Dan is trying to kind of say, hey, you know, just, I get it, you like me, but I'm married. I don't think seeing each other is a good idea because I kind of realized what I've done, and it's not great.
Yeah.
With this whole trying to separate himself from Alex, it kind of leads her down a really intense psychological spiral. As the name of the title indicates, it gets pretty serious.
I think one of the things that is very apparent to me as the film goes on is that this is definitely a film of its time. Now, most films you call that are films where it would remind you of the fashion, the music, the way people acted around that time, but in a very broad manner. This movie is different because of the way that people thought of something like this at the time. The reason why I'm kind of saying that is because of how both Alex and Dan are portrayed in the movie.
I think I'm mostly with you on it. It's definitely a movie of its time, and it definitely kind of shows, especially with some of the attitudes some of the characters have, especially with things like gender stereotypes and things like that. I think really the big thing that stood out in this movie is Alex's sort of descent into just this obsession, just consuming her. It starts off kind of playful in the beginning, and then it just really starts to just devolve quickly. At one point, she has like a complete change in personality and basically just tells Dan to just get the fuck out. Right as he's leaving, she's just running up to him saying, I'm sorry, and they kind of hold each other, and then Dan is just like, hey, your hands are wet. Oh my god, what the fuck did you do to your wrists? Wild descent into madness.
What's interesting with how they do it in this movie, well, not really interesting, but a problem I had with it, is they started off with Alex just being a very troubled woman, which could work in a number of ways, and it can go into some interesting places with that. But what I don't like is how they went from that to literally a horror supervillain at the end. To me, the way they bridged that was just so damn goofy. There came to a point where I think halfway through the film where I was like, you know what? I can't really take this too seriously. Like, I just can't. I guess I'll just enjoy how crazy Alex gets. And that's kind of how I took the film, honestly. It really was less of a psychological examination of what's going on with this woman and the wrong that Dan did. And I think this is the thing that really puzzles me too. Instead of it trying to be like, yo, Dan was wrong, but so is Alex. In the movie as well, they try to make Dan sympathetic, which I thought was puzzling in this movie. He's cheating. Like, he's cheating on his wife, who he said he was very happy with. And his wife is like the picture perfect woman. Beautiful, kind, giving, loving. Like, Jesus Christ. Like, why would you do this?
I'm definitely with you on just the descent into madness just goes a bit off the rails by the end of the movie, because in the beginning it just kind of starts off as kind of like an innocent misunderstanding, and then she has the one moment where she just has a change in her personality and kind of has like manic episodes and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. By the end, it's just like, let's just turn her descent into madness like up to 11 and just fucking go. It was a little bit disappointing because I actually kind of liked seeing this sort of like gradual sort of like descent into despair and madness and everything, but to just kind of go, you know what, we got to make this spicy at the end. We're gonna crank the dial up to 11. We're just gonna fucking go. It was just like, god damn it, guys.
But I will say, though, as disappointing as it is as an in-depth character study, the thriller aspects of the film are fun, but in a very kitschy way. It really just felt like I was watching to see exactly how screwed up this woman will get and how cartoonish it will be. It did not disappoint on that end, but I think that's also a failure on the movie's end, because at no point was like, oh my god, this is so screwed up, this is so scary. I'm watching this going, oh god, where other direction will they go? It's like, where are they going to go with this? But it was still fun in that way.
It's definitely kind of fun in sort of like a just campy-ish way to a sense, because by the end, when they just kind of threw everything out the windows, it's like, all right, yeah, this isn't really kind of like mentally stimulating sort of a psychological erotic thriller anymore. It's just kind of a get the popcorn, get the candy. We're just gonna fucking sit and just see how insane just Alex's descent into madness is gonna go.
But I will say this, though, okay? Because the film has a number of problems, and even though that is the case, I do have to say one thing, though. Glen Close is really good in this. She is really good in this. She just has this way of playing Alex in this movie. I think if it was a lesser actress, it would be way too corny. But she's got enough seriousness, but knowingness of what the material is to where it's enjoyable, yet it's kind of frightening to watch a little bit, even though you can't really take a lot of it seriously.
She was excellent in this. And this was kind of something that I had found out after watching the movie and doing some supplemental research. Apparently, to prepare for the role, Glen Close consulted several psychologists to try to basically form an idea of what Alex's psyche and motivations would be. And apparently just the information she got just kind of really nailed at least the first half of the descent to madness, in my opinion, because just, like I said, it starts off kind of innocent, like a misunderstanding, and then just the more Dan sort of just procrastinates on just being clear with boundaries and stuff like that, the worse and worse the madness gets. I do think it's interesting when I was doing the supplemental research about Glen Close and her trying to understand Alex's psyche and motivations to prepare for the role. Apparently, she also was uncomfortable with the scene where Alex sets up the bunny to be boiled to basically horrify and mortify Dan's wife and his child.
Yeah.
Apparently, she thought it was a little too over the top. During her consultations with this psychologist, apparently they had assured her, no, that's entirely possible for a person with the sort of mental issues that Alex has. So I guess that just kind of convinced her to just keep that scene in and not suggest changes for it, which absolutely an interesting perspective on the role.
It's just sad that it kind of ends the way it does in this movie with me, because I would have rather it been more of a psychologically tout and interesting movie, but it really just turned into a horror movie at the end. It's still fun. I was expecting something more interesting than fun, and that's kind of where my disappointment is. All right, Zero, so we have some research topics, so let's get to your research. Go right ahead.
On some of the supplemental research I was doing, apparently there was an alternate ending to this movie. One of the interesting things was the ending was used for the first release of the movie in Japan, apparently.
No kidding.
Yeah.
Because what I'm reading here is, according to Vanity Fair, test audiences are the reason why that they changed the ending. The test audiences said basically that Alex needs to be punished for what she did. And the original ending, do you know what the original ending is?
Yes. Alex ends up slashing her throat with the knife that Dan had left in her apartment to basically make it look like that Dan murdered her. And then basically just Dan gets hauled away by the police. Beth ends up finding a cassette tape with Alex's psychotic ramblings and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And ends up basically just turning the tape into the police, who basically clear Dan of any wrongdoing and everything. And then you end up getting a flashback of Alex taking her own life while listening to Madam Butterfly.
The reason why they cut that is because test audiences thought that wasn't satisfying enough, because they felt like Alex should have been punished. And that really just shows the different way that they thought of mental illness back then in the 80s, where they would look at somebody like Alex in this movie who is clearly not well at all. Like, she has significant problems, and say, no, she needs to die. Like, because I think, because nowadays we'd be like, oh, that poor woman. Like, yeah, what she's doing is wrong, yes, but clearly she needs some help. What I'm a little disappointed by with the movie, too, is it went from obvious mental illness issues to then, oh, she's just psychotic. She's just someone that you should fear. She's just someone that you should stay away from. She's not someone who needs help. She needs to be put down. And I think that's kind of the disappointing thing I had with the film.
With the second half where they just completely just throw things off the rails and crank it up to 11, I think that's where just the movie sort of loses how interesting the story was. Because for me, the beginning where just she sort of misunderstands the whole situation and kind of thinks that, you know, there's more to this, what she perceives as like an innocent fling or whatever. And then just kind of seeing sort of just the descent into madness and despair just set Alex up as kind of a really, really lonely and tragic woman and everything. I thought that was interesting. And then just when we got to the second half of the movie, they were just like, nope, let's just crank it up as high as it'll go and just make this completely batshit. And it was just like, damn it, guys. You had a really, really interesting setup for the story. And then you just decided, you know, let's just make this as crazy as it'll go. And it'll be so interesting and it'll be just the perfect setup. And it was just like, guys, just, I love the dynamic in the beginning before just you guys sort of threw that out the window.
All right, Zero. So do you recommend Fatal Attraction?
This one is going to be hard for me. I will say I do recommend it, but it's by like bare close percentage. Would almost tip it back to an absolute no. But I think mostly it's because of the fact that I like how the movie starts off in the first half. By the second half, unfortunately, they throw the wonderfully interesting setup in the beginning out the window, turn up Alex's just descent into madness to an insane degree. And by the end, you're just kind of watching to just see how insane just Alex gets. And you're just like, wow, holy shit, she just went completely off the rails.
I'm actually right there with you. I am also going to recommend it, but I'm going to have the same issues you were having with this. I think, again, you're right, the first half was interesting. The second half just went in a completely different direction, but really, by that point, you're just seeing exactly how crazy this movie is going to get. And that's kind of a disappointment, because they had a very interesting plotline that they're going through in this movie. But I think what saves it is just kind of the batshit nature of the second half, and that Glen Close is just really good in the role. I think those are the two things that really save it from it being a not recommendation, where I would actually recommend it, but like if you're bored kind of thing. Like, you want to watch a crime thriller or an erotic thriller that's kind of yeah, watch Fatal Attraction. Anyway, so Zero, do you recommend Fatal Attraction?
I recommend it. And again, to just reiterate, it just comes to a recommendation just by a bare percentage.
Yeah, I am the same way. We both recommend, but barely, Fatal Attraction. Watch it on Prime and on MGM Plus, or you can rent it wherever you'd like. Now, if you want my full review on this movie, you can go to my website at IamTheWiz.com. You'll have my full written review right on the site, along with a link to the video that has this review that you've just listened to. Thank you for listening to this review. If you want to know what we're reviewing in the next couple of days, you can look on the screen right now to see what's coming up next. If you like what you heard, go ahead and leave a like on this video. If you want to discuss your opinion on the film or the review itself, please leave a comment. And if you want to hear more, subscribe to the channel. Thank you again for listening. I will talk to you next time.